Hey everyone. So Dr. Kuniak with a video lecture for you. I wanted to talk a little bit about some practical application of assessment tools. And so I want to talk about the biopsychosocial and mini mental status exam in a live class meeting, but I thought this might be a really great format to kind of talk about some other non-published but frequently used assessment tools. And so the one I wanted to start with was a timeline. This may sound ridiculous, but it's actually one of the more useful uh, early tools that I use with my clients pretty much across the board. So a timeline can look as simple as this. I'm going to open up a document and kind of show you what I mean. Um, so if you were to just open up a sort of standard Word document and begin typing, I tell my clients, so like when I start off, I will say, um, and I'm going to do this for myself so that you can kind of see how it pans out. I always tell my clients, so what I'd like to do is I'd like to start a timeline with you today. And what that all that really is kind of a bulleted list of the most impactful things that come to mind for you throughout your life. And it helps me to stay organized. Like it helps, we're going to cover a lot of ground, across a lot of needs. And so I think it's helpful to just kind of organize to the best of our abilities what this might look like for you. What are the big events in your life? And you can start however you want to, wherever you want to start, whatever is most impactful. So I would probably either do this on a computer so that you can kind of go back and forth for yourself, or do it on a pen and paper first, knowing that you're going to scratch things out and move things around because timelines are rarely linear. The client will start with something more recently. So, like, if this was me, I might talk about, okay, well, in 2014, I earned my doctoral degree. So it was 12, 2014, earns PhD. Okay. And then a lot of times you'll get a couple of these points and clients will say, I don't know what else to put. And I'll say, so why don't you start with when you were born? Like, let's start from the beginning and then go to the earliest thing you can think of after that time. So like, let's move down. And so one of my earliest memories was, um, maybe the first family vacation I ever took. I just have some spotty memories about that. So, I don't even know what year it would be, but I would be like 4 years old. I think it was in North Carolina, if I remember specifically. And then, so probably the next impactful memory I have is when I was 5 years old, going to school for the first time. So, uh, preschools were not as common in my area, so I started kindergarten. Um, you know, and just kind of going through. So, okay, well, jumping around, I got married in 2017. Um, well, so my first major counseling job I started in, I think, 2006. Um, okay, well, what else? So my kids were born in 2020, first son, 2022, second son. Um, and so just getting all of these things. So like if I go back here, um 2006 was my first counseling job. 2006 was also uh when I was in a serious car accident. Um that's legit. So okay, well, so during this time I couldn't walk. And actually it was around 2000 we'll say 2002, I remember anxiety symptoms creeping up. So, what can happen here is I encourage you then to bring this out periodically and check. So, like, as clients bring up other events that are not on the timeline, try to figure out where they fit in and kind of keep this updated. It's amazing how simple it is to do something like this and to uh, have a better way of tracking what it is that our clients are struggling with. Do this enough, and you can come up with patterns. Things that seem to cycle. Impactful life events or trends. If I start mentioning, um, so anxiety symptoms began, but if I do like 2002, we'll say January here, and um, mom is hospitalized for illness. And so then, like, let's say that came up during a discussion, I could say, okay, but 2002 January is when your mom was hospitalized. When did the anxiety symptoms crop up in 2002? Because that's the same time. And so if I say, well, it was March, well, maybe there's a correlation here. And is there something unresolved about this? Because these anxiety symptoms persist. Like, you know, we see them come up. So maybe that's something we need to talk a little bit more about. What did that mean to you? So I know that that's sort of a loose example. Uh, maybe it seems kind of out of context, but there's a lot of different assessment tools that I think we can use. And so, if there's no specific questions from folks, I'm going to draw upon some of these more simple ones that I do with every case, that I utilize with every case, and and bring these up, which actually brings me to another idea. So there's another tool that can be used. I don't have a method of drawing here, but so doing the timeline is one thing. You can do another assessment, which is called a life egg. It's the same thing. Have the client draw an egg, well, or you draw a big egg out on a large piece of construction paper, and have the client draw in memories as they pop up. They don't have to go in any sort of order. As they draw their maybe stick figure memory, wall that off from the rest of the egg. So that seals that memory, and let them continue to draw until they fill the whole egg up. The idea is that, and you can label them so you can kind of keep track of what the memory is, because I don't know about you, but if the client drew, if they're not an artist, which most of us aren't, I'm not, some of that stuff's going to look similar to one another. So getting a note about what it is can be helpful. But similarly, it's like a timeline, a little bit more interactive, but it helps to note trends. And so I'll do both of those interventions with my clients. They stay in the chart somehow, whether it's scanning a picture of it or like transferring it over to a Word document or whatever the case may be. But it helps to note things that have gone on throughout history in a kind of organized way that they wouldn't get to if you just said, what brings you in today, and have that conversation. Both of those assessments can be used as interventions. So it's possible to use it as an intervention when it's happening and point things out and say what's happening here. Or I'm noticing there's a bunch of pictures of your dad that show up throughout history. What are each of those? You can do it that way. You can also then bring those back out in a session if something else pops up. Um, in order to sort of make sense of things that you're hearing later. So and there are more assessments, but those are two that I've used fairly frequently that I think are easy enough for folks to conceptualize, that would be tools that you can utilize, and there's not a lot published on them, so I can't exactly cite you a journal article or a book or something that has those in them. Hopefully this was a fun and useful little interim lecture. Look forward to talking to you a little bit more about some formal assessment tools in our next meeting.